so Barkley, one of his executive functions that he talks about is emotion regulation.
Yeah.
And so there's this term, rejection sensitive dysphoria, otherwise known as RSD. Are you familiar with
Right.
that?
Yeah. So as a matter of fact, I have the article. My original article was in. There's a magazine called Attitude.
Yes.
And it's that's my favorite magazine for ADD, and I highly recommend it for families. And they ran an article, and this goes back. This was quite a few, maybe 2 years ago. And William Dodson, Dodson, was the person who really wrote about it. He has a center in Colorado outside of Denver, and this rejection sensitive dysphoria is really, and it seems to be highly associated with ADHD. And it's one that's very, very prevalent, and where kids overly react to criticism, and they just get into almost a rage. And so it is something that is seen. Now, one of the things, interestingly, is Dr. Dodson does not feel that it's amenable to talk therapy, and he recommended medications. And one of the medicines is the medicine I just mentioned to you about sleep, clonidine. These are called alpha adrenergic agents. And but indeed, it's one that families should be aware of, because they say, I don't know, he gets into such a mood,
Right.
like, oh my God, and I don't know what to do. And so it really is a problem long term. These are the problems. This turns into a situation where they end up becoming people pleasers. It affects your self-esteem, because then you become unsure of how to react because you're afraid of that responsiveness. And then after a while you start looking and thinking, well, how can I be better to that particular person? And you begin losing yourself. You don't know who you really are. And it's pretty interesting thing that is very recently brought up in terms of the ADHD community.
Yeah, there's such a negative mental filter. So on my end, that's what I find. So, when I use a therapeutic approach, and usually CBT is one of the more common ones that I'll use with this, in terms of, accessing earlier experiences when there was exclusion, or they were the last one picked, or a friend just stopped being friends with them, and then there's that internal dialogue. I'm not good enough. I'm a loser. There's a lot wrong with me. Then there's just that real negative filter that gets developed really early on, that really carries through, and it's almost like we're trying to reprogram a person's mind. I call it old script, new script, where that old script can still run over and over.
Oh, it's very hard to get rid of that old script too.